For the past like 2.5 years, I really haven't been making as much art as I used to and as much art as I've wanted to. I've had no drive, I've had no motivation. It's been really hard for me to create because like in my soul, I know I want to. I just like haven't been there. But recently, in the past couple months, I've been doing so much art and it feels lovely. I've been just doing so much digital art, which is part of the reason why I haven't made a video in a little bit here, is just because it's low-key like really not nearly as much fun to watch. But I did want to talk about kind of my experience with digital art and a lot of my feelings about it, because I've experienced so much guilt about making digital art as someone who considers themselves a traditional artist, and I'd like to talk about my thoughts and feelings and how I've been trying to unthink those thoughts, I guess is the best way to say it. So if you've followed my channel, you know I primarily do traditional art. I love traditional art so much. I would like to first start off and say we are not doing any digital art hate here. Everything that I talk about is my like own personal feelings towards creating art myself. We're not going to have any traditional art superiority. We're not going to have any like digital art isn't real art mindsets here, because that is not true, and digital art is very valid and very like good, fun, important, a very valid medium to use to make art. So we're not going to have any of that. I would like to preface with that. I've just had a lot of like weird guilt about it. So I primarily, personally, mainly use traditional art. It's been a while since I've sat down and done traditional art. Not like a super long time, but like I don't really do it that much right now, and I've had a lot of guilt about that. So in my personal background of doing art, I've drawn my entire life. Even when I was a kid, I have sketchbooks from when I was like a little wee child, and they're horrifying, but they are so lovely to own. So I've been drawing quite literally my entire life. And when I was about the age of 10, I want to say, I discovered digital speed paints on YouTube, and I used to watch so many Pokemon MS Paint speed paints, and I absolutely loved it. And I decided I can do that too. And so between the ages of 10 to like 14, I want to say, I did a lot of digital art. I did a lot of digital art with a mouse on MS Paint. I upgraded eventually to a version of Photoshop that my parents owned, and then I eventually also got a drawing tablet so I wouldn't have to use a mouse, which was so lovely for me. And then around the age of 14, over something very, very stupid, my parents decided to ground me for like 3 full years to not have any computer access or anything like that, and so I couldn't do digital art anymore. And so I had been doing traditional art on top of digital art in that time frame, but once I hit like the age of 14, I really only did traditional art. I discovered so many mediums, especially working in high school is where I really discovered my love for traditional art, because I've always enjoyed art classes and stuff, but I found watercolors through high school, which at first I absolutely hated them. But then I grew to love them so much. And then as I got older, I tried to dabble into digital art again with a tablet I had when I actually was able to do that. And it was really lovely, but it didn't hit the same. And so eventually I got an iPad Pro, which is something that I'm so grateful for. I've had this iPad for many years now. It's lovely. It's an older iPad, so she definitely dies faster than she used to. And I would love to get an upgraded iPad eventually, but they are so expensive and I am so broke, so that won't be happening anytime soon. But I got my iPad Pro and it is so lovely. I've used it a lot between getting it probably around like 6 years ago and now, but I've still primarily done traditional art. Digital art has been really nice for making stuff for my shop, like graphics for my shop and products for my shop, because it is so much easier to translate a digital piece into physical merchandise. Just for like stickers and stuff, you don't have to worry about insane editing and all that. So I've used my tablet for that primarily, but I think I've always in my soul had a lot of guilt about making digital art, solely because I personally have always preferred traditional art. I have always loved consuming traditional art just because I think it is so crazy what certain people can do without the capability to undo things, without the capability to use a lasso tool and move stuff around. Traditional art is just like more of a one and done kind of thing versus how many times you can tweak things digitally. And of course it varies medium to medium, but for that reason, and also for just having like a physical original copy, I've always preferred it. And especially in the time that I've been creating art under tirameowsu on the internet with my YouTube channel, with my Patreon, I have in my brain decided that people like my artwork for my traditional artwork. And so the first time I became self-aware, I guess, of this being kind of like a bad mindset for myself was probably like maybe a year or so ago. I remember I wanted to work on a Patreon monthly print piece because I do monthly prints on my Patreon, and I did something in digital art, and I just remember thinking like, this shouldn't be my Patreon print for this month, because the people who follow me and the people who are on my Patreon know me for my traditional art. And yes, it's a different medium, which is like, instead of using watercolors, that's adjacent to me using like acrylic markers or using gouache or using, you know, something else. But in my brain, it was just such a big separation. And in my brain, it was like, people who like my traditional art won't accept my digital art because it is so different. It looks different, it's a different style, like etc. It still looks like my art, but I just had like that mindset about it. And so I was feeling so much guilt about Patreon prints because I was wanting to do digital art, but I was beating myself up over it because I was like, this isn't what people want, therefore I can't make it. Which theoretically sounds really stupid, but if you've posted your art online for any reason, if it's for personal use, you know, whatever it is, I feel like we all get to that point of like wanting to make things that other people will like. And for me, that's where this little evil thought process started. Mind you, no one has ever said anything like this to me. I'm sure some of you guys have opinions and thoughts, and that's totally understandable about like preferring my own traditional art over my digital work. I'm sure so many people couldn't care less. But in my brain, I was like, yeah, people don't like me for my digital art, not necessarily like me, but people don't like my content for digital art. They like it for traditional art. And so that was so deeply subconsciously ingrained into my brain that I felt so much guilt about it. And I really only wanted to do digital art, and I was having fun with it, but like I felt so bad and so guilty about putting out multiple Patreon prints that were digital art, to the point where like I really wanted to do more digital art, but I would put out a Patreon print for the month that was digital art, and in my brain be like, you absolutely cannot do another digital piece next month, because then that's 2 months in a row of digital art, and people want your art for your traditional work. Which it sounds like, even saying it out loud, it sounds so stupid, because like it is a stupid thought. Not saying it's not a valid thought to have, because even if you're having feelings that are like irrational, that does not mean your feelings and your thoughts are invalid. That just means they're irrational. And I only really like fully came to terms with this and started actually processing this recently. Like arguably only within the last like 8-ish months I have come to terms with it, and even now I still am slightly struggling with this thought process, which is stupid, but it just kind of spiraled out of control of like, I need to make traditional art. And another reason behind that is also like, in my brain, especially for YouTube, I'm like, it makes a lot more sense for me to make videos of me drawing traditional art, just because I feel like it's far more entertaining to watch. Even editing this video, I was just watching this and I was like, good God, it's just so much of me going back and forth, slightly tweaking things and double clicking to undo. And visually, I don't think that is particularly the most interesting thing. And then like for making products for my shop, I feel like they need, quote unquote, need to be traditional art, because that's what people are used to seeing me for, and that's what people follow me for, so that's what I keep having to do. And also in the past like 6 months or so, I have been very much so trying to be so mentally wild and free when it comes to making art, because I have so many old sketchbooks, and looking back at those old sketchbooks, there are so many things that I look at and I'm just like, God, like girl really didn't know how to draw a castle, but like 8-year-old me went in with no reference and just did it. And like, I didn't know how to draw anatomy. I didn't know how human anatomy worked when I was a child. But if I wanted to draw a pose that came to my little child brain, I would draw that pose. And I think that is something that is so important to try to achieve in your art as an adult, because with literally everything in life, I feel like there are so many more mental restrictions to doing things. I feel like there's just a lot more things in the way of creating and doing things and being a person, of just like, oh, I have to make sure the anatomy looks good because otherwise it's gonna be like a bad piece of artwork. And just like so many little things like that that you just have ingrained in your brain that you can't let go of, and you just think about subconsciously, and it stops you from being wild and free and just drawing. And so I've been trying to achieve being wild and free when I make art, and really trying to focus on doing stuff that makes me happy and drawing things that I want to draw, and not trying to be so caught up in the thought that it needs to be perfect or it needs to be this or it needs to be that, and just trying to be wild and free. And I am so desperately holding on to that mindset and trying to achieve that. And I've just been really enjoying making digital art. It has taken me so long to come to terms with that, and so long to just accept that and be happy with it. I also have like the mental block when it comes to making YouTube videos of, generally as an art YouTube account, your best videos are going to be sketchbook tours. At least in my personal experience and what I've seen from other creators, people love sketchbook tours, which is so valid. I also love watching sketchbook tours. And in my brain, especially for a while there, I was putting out a sketchbook tour every like 6 or so months. And so in my brain, I was like, I need to keep that up, and I need to finish a sketchbook every 6 or so months. So it needs to be this and it needs to be that. And it's just like so much weird, unnecessary, internalized pressure of when I would draw with my iPad, I'd be like, I should be drawing traditionally because then I can fill my sketchbook faster. So then I can make a video of it faster. So then I can be on track with that unnecessary mental timeline that I need to have for YouTube videos. And so just like so many things like that have gotten in the way of me just enjoying making digital art. And even now, I feel so weird posting my digital art to Instagram, for example, because my feed used to be all traditional art, and all of a sudden it's a lot of digital art. And it's so unnecessary, and it's so evil, and it's so sick, and it's so twisted. And even with being self-aware of this and understanding like this is where these thoughts and feelings are coming from, that still doesn't stop me from even now having internalized guilt about making digital art. But again, I am so desperately trying to be wild and free with my mentality towards art, because I want it to be fun, and trying to be wild and free makes it fun. So I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this, both in the sense of digital art and potentially just straight up using other mediums. But as you can see, in doing digital art, I made this sticker sheet, which will be in my next shop update, undisclosed. I also had a shop update at the beginning of this month if you want to peek at my online store. I have a lot of things on clearance and some other new things, so link is in the description. But I am making kiss cut stickers with my Cricut, fighting for my life with my Cricut. I will say, as per usual, she does her best, but it does drive me a little crazy. It's a lot of work to make these, but they look so good. They're so cute. And I actually couldn't even begin to tell you what possessed me to make this sticker sheet. I got the idea in my brain and immediately started doing it. It took me forever, and genuinely, not exaggerating, I spent an entire 10 hours organizing these individual pieces on the sticker sheet. I spent a full day doing that. It did drive me crazy. It also drove my partner crazy because he wanted to spend time with me and I was just moving images. But she's done. Thank you guys, if you've made it this far, for listening to me yap. I appreciate y'all so much, and I will see you on the next one.